Hello, in this video you're going to learn how to create an inventory system. When I press I have 6 empty slots in my inventory, and I can just press E to pick up an item, and now when I press I have that item in my inventory. If I want, the player character can drop that item, so it's there, and then I can pick up this item again. I can pick up this sword, and we're going to also cover how to make stackable items. So I can pick up all of these apples, and when it's a stackable item, it'll basically stack the quantity of that item. And like I said, I can drop all of these items if I want to. Also, if you're subscribed to my website, then you can just instantly get access to the project files of this tutorial. Before we get started, if you want to learn how to make an even more advanced inventory system with dragging and dropping, filtering, and much more, make sure to check out my RPG inventory system course. You can find a link to it in the description of this video. It will teach you everything you need to know about how to create a modular and flexible inventory system. You already get access to it if you're subscribed to my website. Okay, with that said, let's get into the tutorial. I'm going to be creating this project in the third person template. Okay, so to get started, I'm just going to right click and create a new folder and call it inventory. All of the assets that I'm going to create with my inventory are going to be stored in this folder. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is design how our inventory is going to look. So inside of this folder, if we just right click and create a new folder, and just call it widgets, then double click and hit inside here, and then we just want to right click again and go over to user interface and select the widget blueprint, select the user widget and call this the widget blueprint underscore inventory. Next, if we double click and open this up, we just want to go over to the palette and look for a canvas panel, and then just drag this into the widget blueprint inventory. Next, we just want to look for an overlay and just drag this somewhere into the screen. Next, just resize it so it's a nice size, and I'm just going to anchor mine to the bottom left. Next, we just want to look for a border and just drag this inside of the overlay. Select the border and just go over to fill horizontally and fill vertically. Then look for an image and just drag this image inside of the border. Select the image, then go over to the brush and then just change the tint. So let's make it this dark grey colour. That looks nice. We can go OK, and I'm just going to remove all of the padding in this image here. Make it 0, then make it 2. Now our inventory will have this white outline around it. If you don't want it to have that, you can just make the border 0, but I want that. And then we just want to add a wrap box, and just drag this wrap box inside of the overlay. Select this wrap box and just call it wrap box, and just make sure it is a variable. We're going to be using this later. We can just compile this and save it. The next thing we're going to do is create a widget blueprint slot. This is going to be how each item looks inside of our inventory. So if we just right click and then go over to user interface, select a widget blueprint, then select the user widget and call this the widget blueprint underscore slot. Double click and open it up. Select the palette and then look for a size box and just drag this into the widget blueprint slot. Select the size box and select width override and height override and just change these to be 100 by 100. This is going to be how big a slot is inside of our inventory. We then want to go here and change this from fill screen to desired on screen. This will make it accurately show the size of our size box, so we set it to be 100 by 100. Next, just look for a button and just drag this button inside of the size box. When we click on an item inside of our inventory, we'll basically remove it from the player character's inventory and spawn it in front of them. So we want it to be a button. Next, we just want to look for an overlay, drag this on top of the button, and then look for an image. Drag this image on top of the overlay. This image will basically represent the item in my inventory. So we're going to be adding an apple, a shield, and a Minecraft sword. So this image will basically display the item of the item in the inventory. We just want to make sure that this is fill horizontally and fill vertically. And then we also just want to select our overlay and make sure this has the same settings. We also want to go over to padding and make this 0 so it takes up as much of the button as possible. And then also just select this button. And we want to go over to style and just go to normal padding and make this 0. And also go over to press padding and make this 0. So that it fills up everything. And then finally, we're going to look for some text. We're also going to go over how to create stackable items in our inventory. And when we have a stackable item, we want the player character to be able to see the quantity of that item. So let's just drag in some text and drag it inside the overlay. Select the text and just change the color and opacity to be black so that we can actually see it. And for the vertical alignment, just like this one, this will move it to the bottom right corner. And then we also want to go to horizontal alignment and select this one. And then let's just change the text to be something like 2. And it's basically going to display this text in the bottom right corner. Nice, we can just compile this. And for each item that my player character has, we'll show it as a slot in the player character's inventory. So now we've designed the widgets for how our inventory is going to look and how the items in my player's inventory are going to look. The next thing we're going to do is create an inventory inside of our player character. So we can just close this, go over to the third person folder and over to the blueprints folder, and we're actually going to create the inventory as a component which we can add on to the third person character. That way this kind of makes the inventory system a bit more easy to transfer and a bit more flexible. So to create a component, we can basically attach components onto characters if you've never heard of a component before. And to create one, we can just right click and go over to blueprint class and just select actor component and just call this our blueprint underscore inventory component. And I can just open up my blueprint third person character, and if I just go over to components here and go add, let me just add the blueprint underscore inventory component that we just created. Then we can just compile this. If I close this and then I go over to my blueprint inventory component, I can just drag off event begin play here and look for print string and make this just say hello. If I compile this and then I play my game, it should print string hello in the top left corner because my player character has this inventory component. Nice. Now that we've created our inventory component, next let's create some items for our inventory. So if we just close this, go over to our inventory folder, let's right click here and create another new folder and just call this blueprints. Then we want to head inside here and we're going to create a structure. If you don't know what structure is, it can basically hold multiple variables at the same time. Because items in our inventory are going to kind of need to have a lot of data about them, it's going to be easier if we basically create a structure blueprint, and this will basically tell us all of the information about the item in our inventory. So to create a structure, we can just right click, go over to blueprints and select structure and just call this the S underscore item structure. Then open it up and we just want to go here. As you can see, it already has this variable. We just want to rename it to be called name because in our inventory we want to know the name of an item. We just want to change this variable type to be a text. Inside of our inventory, we also want to know if the item is stackable. So if we just here type in stackable and we want to change this to be a boolean. We just want to go add variable here. We also want to know the quantity of the item. We want to change this to be a integer. We want to add another variable. We also want to know how the image looks. So basically when we are displaying the item in our inventory, we want to have a thumbnail of that image. So here I'm just going to type in thumbnail. And for the variable, we're going to change this to be a texture 2D. And then we also want to know the mesh of the item inside our inventory, because we're also going to make it so the player character can drop items from their inventory. And when we do this, we basically want to know what mesh and kind of know what the item in our inventory looks like. So here, if we just type in mesh, and then for the variable, we want to look for static mesh. So let's just change this to be a static mesh object reference. Next, we can just save this and close it. The next thing we're going to do is import the models for the items that we're going to use for our inventory. So if we just go back to our inventory folder, let's right click and create a new folder. I'll just call it models. So if you're following along with this tutorial, there are 3 items we're going to basically make the player be able to pick up and use in their inventory. You don't have to use the exact models that I'm using, although if you want to follow along, somewhere in the description of this video, I'm going to attach a link to 3 models which you can use, but you don't have to use them. Feel free to use your own items as you may be customizing this inventory system for your own game. But I'm just going to showcase and provide some models in case you don't have some. Okay, so here are my 3 models. It's an apple, Captain America's shield, and a diamond sword from Minecraft. And I also basically attached some images of each of them. So let's just drag them in to this folder. click import all, and then just select all of these textures. So I'm holding shift on my keyboard and selecting all of the textures, then right click and go create material. We can delete all of the materials that come here, and then we just want to apply each material to the relevant static mesh. So for this apple, if I open it up, I'm just going to drag on this T_apple material onto it. We can save that. Let's do the same for the Captain America shield, and then let's do the same for the diamond sword. Okay, nice. Now that we have the models, we can go back to our blueprint. Let's right click and create our item blueprint. So this is going to be a flexible blueprint which can change to be whatever item I want it to be. Next, if we just right click and create a blueprint, select an actor and just call this blueprint_item. So this is going to be an item that my player character can find in the game, and then they can pick it up and add it to their inventory. So let's open it up and let's just go add here and look for a static mesh. And then we just want to go to variables and just call this item. Go over to variable type, and then we just want to change it to be the s_item structure that we made. Make sure it's instance editable and expose on spawn, then click compile. Then we should be able to go here and we can set the name of this item, if it's stackable, the quantity of this item, its image, and its mesh. Next, we can just close this, and then I can drag in my blueprint_item and I can create an item. So let's create, if I just go over to my models folder, let's first create our apple item. So I'm just going to call this apple. I'm going to say it is stackable. For the quantity, I'm going to make it 1, so there's going to be 1 apple here. For the thumbnail, I forgot to include the thumbnail images. I'll make sure these are included in the inventory folder assets. Just make sure to also right click on these and go sprite actions and apply paper 2D texture settings. Okay, and then I'll make the apple have the apple thumbnail, and I'll make it have the apple mesh, so that this item actually shows the mesh of the item that it has. Let's just go over to the blueprint and over to the construction script. We can drag in the item, get it, then just drag off here and look for break as item. Click here, then we should be able to access how the mesh of the item looks. Then we can just drag in the static mesh, drag off here and look for set static mesh, and connect from here into here and from here into the construction script. And let's go compile, close this, and we should be able to see our apple in our game. Nice. I can just hold the Alt button with the item selected, and that allows me to quickly duplicate it. And let's call this item the diamond sword. It's not stackable because it's a sword. We want the quantity to be 1. We can change this to be the Minecraft thumbnail sword. And then for the mesh, I want this to be the SM diamond sword. Nice. Then let's create one more item. So I'll press Alt again with it selected. That allows me to duplicate it. This time it's going to be Captain America's shield. I'll just call it the shield. Again, I don't want it to be stackable. For the thumbnail, I can just use its image here. Let me just make sure that this has paper 2D texture settings applied to it as well. And then for the mesh, we want this to be the Captain America shield. Okay, so we have the 3 items my player character will be able to pick up: the apple, the sword, and the shield. Let's also make it so that these items actually simulate physics, because it looks kind of weird that they're in the sky. So let's just open it up, and I'm going to select the static mesh, and in the details, let me look for simulate. Okay, so it's not allowing me to click this, probably because I have no mesh here. So let's just drag off here and look for set simulate physics, and make sure we check simulate. And I'll just delete this, and then select the static mesh. In order to make sure that simulate physics works, we just need to change the collision presets to be physics actor. Compile this, close this, and go play, and all of those items should simulate physics. Nice. Now that we've made some items for our inventory, let's make it so the player character can actually open and look at the inventory. If we just scroll down and go over to blueprints and open up the inventory blueprint component, And we just want to go to event begin play. We can delete this print string, event begin play. We can just drag off here, and we're going to create a widget. This widget is going to be the widget blueprint underscore inventory. And we just want to right click and permit this to a wrap, callable reference, and want to use this later on. So I'll just call this inventory widget. Next, just compile that. And I want to make it so when the player presses the I button, it will show the inventory. I'm not going to cover how to use Unreal Engine's enhanced input system, as this is an inventory system tutorial and I want to focus more on that. So if we just right click and I look for I and just look for the I key, we're going to make it so when the player presses the I button, it opens up the inventory. So we just want to drag in our inventory widget, get it, and we just want to see if it is visible. So if we drag off here and look for is visible, then just drag off here and look for branch and connect from pressed into here. If this widget is not visible on the screen, then we want to show it. So we can just drag in the inventory widget, get it, drag off here and look for add to a viewport, and then this will show our inventory. If our widget is visible when we press the I button, then we want to hide it from the screen. So we can just drag off here and look for remove from parent. This will remove the widget from the screen. Then we can just connect from true into here. Let's compile this and test it out. So I close this and then I play my game. I can press the I button and it shows me my inventory. I can press the I button again and then it'll close my inventory. Nice. Next, let's make it so there are some slots in our inventory. So if I just open up my inventory component, I'm just going to create a new variable and I'm just going to call this items. We're going to change this variable type to be the s underscore item structure that we made earlier and change this to be an array. An array can hold multiple elements. So if I just compile this, I can just go add here, and basically I can add as many elements as I want, and this array will store it. So an array can store multiple variables of the same type. I'm just going to delete this, and then begin play. I'm going to make it so my inventory is a certain size. So if I just drag off items, I'm going to get it, then I'm just going to drag off here and look for resize, and then let's change this to be 10. And that basically means my inventory is going to have 10 slots inside of it. I'll just connect from here into here. Then we just want to compile this, close this, and then we just want to go back to our widgets and open up the widget blueprint slot. Go over to the graph, create a new variable, and just call this item. Change this variable type to be the s underscore item structure. And then we just want to go over to event pre-construct. So we'll load these nodes before our widget is shown on the screen. And what we're going to do is we just want to get this item. We'll basically want to make sure it's instance editable and expose on spawn. And this item will basically tell us the image we should display here and the quantity of the item that we should display. So let's select this image, make sure it is a variable, and just call it item image. Then select this text and just call it item quantity. And also make sure it is a variable. Then go over to the graph. We want to drag off this item and look for break s item structure, expand it, and then event pre-construct. We want to drag in the item image, get it, then just drag off here and look for set brush from texture, and connect from thumbnail into here, and from event pre-construct into here. And then we also just want to drag in the item quantity, get it, then just drag off here and look for set text, scroll down and we want this one, set text, and connect from quantity into here. If the quantity of my item is ever 1, then I don't really want to show the quantity text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if the quantity of my item is greater than 1. So here I'm going to type in 1, then I'm going to drag off here and have a branch and connect from here into here. If that's true, then I'm going to drag in my item quantity, get it, and I'm just going to drag off here and look for set visibility and set it so we can see it. However, if this is not the case, then we can just copy these nodes, paste them, and let's just make it so it's hidden so that we can't see the quantity text. Next, let's just compile this, and we want to close this and go over to our widget blueprint item inventory, select our wrap box, and again make sure it is a variable. And with our wrap box, one more thing I didn't do is we need to just select the horizontal alignment and select this one, fill horizontally and fill vertically, That way our wrap box basically takes up all of this space. Then we just want to go over to our graph and create a new function and just call it load inventory. And when we call this function, we also want to get a reference to our player character's inventory system. So for the input, just type in inventory, and then for the variable type, we just want to look for the BP_inventory component and select an object reference. Then when we load our inventory, we're going to be accessing the player character's inventory component. We just want to drag off here and get the items that they have. And then we just want to drag off here and look for the for each loop node. So for every item that my player character has inside of their inventory, we're just going to drag off here and look for create widget. And that widget is going to be the widget blueprint_slot that we just made. And we just want to connect from array element into here. And then we just want to drag in the wrap box, get it, then just drag off here. Then we just want to drag off here and look for add child to wrap box, connect from the return value into here, and from here into here. And then because the player character may need to load their inventory multiple times, we just need to make sure that we clear the wrap box before we basically fill it up with all of the items inside of our inventory. That way it doesn't cause any issues. So in order to prevent that, we can just copy this wrap box. Then we just want to drag off here and look for clear children and connect from here into here and from here into here, and just go compile. Then I go over to my blueprint_inventory component. We make it so our inventory has 10 items. After we do this, we just want to drag in our inventory widget, get it, and call the load inventory function that we made. And for this inventory reference, just drag off here and look for self. This way it has a reference to our inventory component. And now I go play. When I press I have my 10 inventory slots. If I press I again, it will close it. Sorry that all of the slots are very close together. In order to fix that, we can open up our widget blueprint slot, select the button, and just give this a padding of, let's say, 5. Then compile this. Now when I close this and I press I, we can see my 10 inventory slots. Nice. The next thing to do is to make it so the player character can go up to an item inside of the inventory and pick it up. So if we just scroll down and go over to our blueprints folder, open up the blueprint component, and let's find some free space and just right click and look for the E key. When we press this button, so if we just drag off here, we're going to do a sphere trace by channel. So this is basically do a sphere, and where this is going to start, we just want to right click and look for get player character, and we just want to drag off here and look for get actor location, drag off this return value and look for the subtract node, and then in the Z I found a value of 65, works pretty well. Connect this into start and this into end, and make the radius something like 120, and change the draw debug to be for duration. Then go compile, close this, and now if I go play and I press E, a sphere should appear around the player character when they press the E button, and we'll basically use this to detect whether an item is in front of the player character. So when I press the E button, we need to check to see if there's an item in front of us, and if there is, then we'll add it to our player character's inventory. So we just want to drag off this R hit result and look for break hit result, and just expand this arrow. This will give us information about the item that we hit with our sphere trace channel, and we want to check to see if that item is the BP item blueprint that we made earlier. So to check that, we can just drag off hit actor and cast to the BP_item, and if this works, then this node will fire, and if it isn't that item, then this cast failed node will fire. If it is the blueprint item, then we're going to add this to our inventory. So to do that, we can just drag in this items variable, get it, then just drag off here and look for the for each loop node. This will basically check every single item that my player has in their inventory. The first thing we're going to basically check to see is if we have the item that we're trying to pick up already in our inventory, and we're also going to check to see if that item is stackable. And if that's the case, then we're just going to add that item to our inventory. Hopefully that makes sense. It should make more sense as we basically go through the nodes, as it's kind of complicated making an inventory system. So we just want to drag off this array element and look for break S item structure, and just click this arrow as well. And we also just want to drag off this BP item and get the item variable inside it. We also want to drag off here and look for break as item structure and just expand it. So first we're going to check to see if we have an item in our inventory which has the same name. So if I look for equal, and we want this one equal exact text. And we want to check to see that the item is stackable. So we just want to drag off here and look for and boolean, and then just connect from here into here. We're checking to see if these items have the same name and they're stackable. And we also want to make it so even though an item is stackable, the player shouldn't be able to stack unlimited quantities of that item. So we want to check to see that the total quantity of the item that we already have in our inventory and the item that we're trying to pick up has a quantity total which is less than 64. So we just want to drag off here and look for add and just connect from here to here, and we want to check to see that this total quantity is less than or equal to 64. Add a pin here, then connect from here to here, then just drag off here and look for a branch and connect from here into here. If this is the case, then we are just going to drag in our items, get it, drag off here and look for set array element. This will allow us to basically specify where an item is inside of our inventory and customize what it is. We just want to connect from true into here. For the item, so it knows which item it's doing this to, we can just connect from array index into here. And what we're going to make that item have, we can just drag off this item and look for make its item structure, expand this area, and then just so this is a bit tidier, let's also just drag off here and get the item, right click here and split the structure. We want to connect the name, the stackable, the thumbnail and the mesh, although for the quantity, if it's less than or equal to 64, we just want to set it here and just connect from here to here. This will basically add the item to our inventory. Then after we do this, we want to refresh our inventory. So we can just drag in our inventory widget, get it, then just drag off here and call the load inventory function. This will update our inventory, and then so that this has a reference, we can just drag off here and look for self. So in a nutshell, what we're doing here is we're checking to see when we pick up an item, if we already have that item in our inventory and we have less than 64 units of that item, if that item is stackable. If this isn't the case, then we also just want to drag off here and look for branch, and we want to check to see that we have enough space in our inventory to add this item. So the way we can do that is we can just drag off this quantity, and we want to check to see if the value of this is equal to 0. So if you remember at the start of our game, we have 10 inventory slots. Inside of our inventory slots, if the quantity of a slot is 0, that basically means it's an empty slot. And if that's the case, then we just want to drag off here and look for set array element. We can drag in our items, get it, and connect from here into here. And we want to get the slot which is empty, so just connect from array element into here and make it so it has the item that we just picked up. So we can just again drag off here, get the item, and then connect from here into here, and then this will get the item that we just picked up. And then after we do this, we just want to refresh our inventory, so we can connect from here into here. And then one more thing, after we pick up an item, we want to destroy it. So let me just double click actually, and then I'm just going to drag off here and look for the destroy actor. Sorry, my nodes are a bit messy. And then now if I go compile, close this and I go play, I go over here, press E, the apple is added to my inventory. I press I and I can see the apple there. I can do the same here. I can pick up that diamond sword. I can press E again and I'll pick up that shield. Nice. So I have all of those items in my inventory. Okay, but I'm getting a bunch of errors and I know why, and I'll just explain it to you. So it's basically telling me it's accessing num trying to read the BP item. So I know what it's basically telling me. Basically, when we add an item to our inventory, we destroy this actor. Although it's still running this for each loop, although we've destroyed this actor, that's why I'm basically getting that error message. In order to prevent this, we can just drag off here and look for the is valid, and we want this one with a question mark, connect from loop body into here, and from is valid into here. Only if the item that we're trying to pick up is valid, we will do all of this. Okay, now go compile, close this, and play your game. Press E, and we can pick up our items, close our game, and we should get no errors. Now that we've done that, I'm also just going to turn the draw debug off and change this to be none, and go compile. Nice. We're almost done. The next thing we want to do is we want to make it so the player character can drop items from their inventory. So to do this, we can just close this, go over to our widgets folder, and open up the widget blueprint underscore slot. Then we just want to select the button, make sure it is a variable, and just call this item button. Close this. When we click on this button, we just want to get our item, whatever item it is. Then we just want to drag off here and look for spawn actor from class. The actor is going to be the BP underscore item. Connect this into item here so it knows what item is going to be spawning. Where it's going to spawn, we can just right click and look for get player character and get the actor's transform. So look for get actor transform. Connect this into here and change this to be always spawn ignore collisions. And then when we click on an item button, we also want to just update our inventory to basically show that we no longer have this item in our inventory. So to do this, we're going to need to create a couple of variables inside of here. So just go add new variable, call this first one index, and change this to be an integer. Change this to be instance editable and expose and spawn. We basically need to know where this item is in our inventory. That way we can basically update it when we tell the game that we're removing this item. And then next we also want to create a reference to our player character's inventory system. So I'll just create another variable and call it inventory. And then I'm going to change the variable type to be a BP underscore inventory component. And again, make it instance editable and expose and spawn. Compile this blueprint. Go over to the widget blueprint inventory. Go over to the load inventory function. Select this widget. Right click and go refresh nodes. Connect from array index into here. And connect from the inventory component reference into here. Now this will have a reference to our player character's inventory system. We can compile this, go back to our widget blueprint slot. We can drag in our inventory variable. Then we just want to drag off here and look for my player character's items. So we'll get all the items in their inventory. Then just drag off here and look for set array element. Connect from here into here. Until we know which item we're doing this to, we can drag in our index. Connect into here. Then we can just drag off here and look for make as item. And we can just leave everything blank. And then we just want to call the load inventory function. So we can just drag up here, get our inventory widget, and then we'll call the load inventory. We can connect from here into here, from here into here, and go compile. And we can close this. Now if I go play, and I press E, and I press I, oh, I need to make it so my player character has a mouse so they can actually click on items in their inventory. It's very easy to do. We can just go over to our blueprint and over to our blueprint component. Before we show our inventory, we can just right click and look for get player controller. Then we just want to drag up here and look for set show mouse cursor. Make sure that this is checked. This will make it so we can see our mouse cursor. Then we just want to drag up here and look for set input game and UI. This will make it so my player character can interact with UI elements. We can connect from here to here. And then when I'm closing my inventory, I want to basically do the opposite of this. So I can just copy this, paste it here, connect from here to here, uncheck show mouse cursor, and then we just want to drag off the player controller and look for set input game only. Connect from here into here and go compile. Okay, let's play my game. I can press E, pick up some items. I can press I, click, and then we can see it spawns that item, spawns that shield, spawns that apple. Nice. I actually noticed I didn't do one thing. Let's make it so there are multiple of these apples. When I press E and open up my inventory, we can see it says 3 apples. Okay, there you have it. That's how to create an inventory system. So the player character can pick up items, they have their inventory, and they can click and basically spawn items in their inventory. Very nice. This was a longer tutorial, although I'm hoping you found it really valuable. I want to focus on creating really valuable content for you guys, but I also want to make sure it's demanded. So if a lot of you let me know about a particular thing that you want to know in Unreal Engine, I'll spend some time looking into it to make the best tutorial on it. If you want to learn how to create an even better inventory system with even more features like drag and drop, and how to make it so the player character can equip and put on items from their inventory, and a lot more, check out my RPG inventory system course. There'll be a link to it somewhere in the description of this video, and you'll learn how to make the best inventory system on the internet. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.